Hi everyone, so today's video is going to be my December wrap up. Now once again, I'm really sorry for posting this so late. I'm just not someone who can film these types of videos like very frequently because like I said before already in my previous wrap ups, it takes a lot of energy out of me to do this type of video. So I'm really sorry once again that it's so late, but I feel like people have gotten used to that by now hopefully. So yeah, let's just get into my December wrap up because I'm in a lot of pain today. So yeah, let's just try and make it through this video. So firstly, we have Dead in Our Hands. Now, this is a book that I got from the library. It's from the same author as My Year of Rest and Relaxation, I'm pretty sure. That's the title of it. I don't particularly like this author's style of writing, but for some reason I keep picking up their books from the library because I mean it doesn't cost me any money, so might as well try them out. And I keep hoping that one book works for me, but it just doesn't. I gave this book 2.5 stars, I'm pretty sure. I just didn't like it once again. I think I liked it a little bit more than the two previous books that I read from them, but I still don't like it. So yeah, I don't know what's with me and not liking this style of writing because everyone else seems to love it, but I just don't. So yeah, I guess I'll just keep trying out their books if they keep appearing in my library. So yeah, glad I read it, I guess. So yeah. Then next I finally managed to finish this series, which is The Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. I always struggle saying that title. But yeah, I managed to read volumes 2, 3, and 4. This is volume 4. And yeah, I managed to finish this entire series last year, which I really liked because I really liked this series and I wanted to be able to finish this before the end of the year, and I managed to do it with time to spare even. So yeah, really glad I managed to finish this series. I really enjoyed it, as you can tell from the amount of tabs that are in this book. I don't know if you can see it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this series. The disability representation, sadly enough, went away in the last volume, but I feel like it was done in a way that to me it seemed okay to me. That kind of felt okay still. I feel like sometimes with books or TV shows or movies, when they cure the disabled character, I really dislike it. With this series, I didn't particularly dislike it. I feel like it was done in a way that was very I don't know, very well portrayed, I guess. I was gonna say realistic, but it's not realistic because it's a fantasy series. But I feel like it was done in a way that it could be justified. I feel like a lot of series or TV shows that cure a disabled character, they never justify it. They're just oh, they're cured now. With this, I feel like there was a reasoning behind it, and I should probably put a slight spoiler warning before I did that whole rant because I'm pretty sure me saying the disability representation went away, everyone who starts this series will immediately know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'll probably put a spoiler warning, a slight spoiler warning for this series, right before my rant on it. So yeah, like I said, glad I read the series. I really liked it. I gave this last volume 5 stars even with the disability representation going away. I gave it 5 stars. Really liked it. Highly recommend it. Yeah, I really liked it. Also, the covers are really pretty, so another reason to buy it. But yeah, I'm really glad I read it. It was a very relaxing read, which usually these types of series, I forget what the name for this called, this type of series, but usually they're very intense and people die and it's very intense. This was very relaxing, so yeah, I needed that at the end of the year, so yeah, I highly recommend it. Then next I read this book. I'm not gonna try and pronounce the title of this book because it's very difficult for me to say. But yeah, I got this book from the library, as you could probably tell, because it's in a language that is not English, which then it usually means I got it from the library. But this was a very difficult book to go through because it was a book about people who got essayed. I don't know if I can see that on YouTube, but they got taken advantage of by people who work for the church. And yeah, it's all about that and the impact that it had on their life. Some people describe what happened to them in great detail, which was difficult to read. Other people don't really describe it in detail. But yeah, it was basically 100 people, over 100 people I think even, describing their experiences. And yeah, it was very difficult to read, but it was a very eye-opening read, I guess, as someone who grew up not religious at all. I can literally count on one hand the amount of times I've been in a church. So as someone who didn't grow up within that like culture at all. Like it's very like informative, I guess, almost, to like read this book and see what could happen in a situation like that when you grow up in a culture like that. So yeah, it was very difficult to read, but I felt like it was necessary for me to read it and kind of like educate myself on the topic. This isn't necessarily like educating yourself, it's more like giving these people, like these 100 people, like the chance to talk and like tell everyone about what happened to them. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that I highly recommend this book, because first of all, it's going to be very difficult for people to find this book like translated, because I don't know if it has been translated in English. But second of all, also like it's a very difficult subject to read, and it's also like a very long book. It's like 600 pages of just like people telling their stories. So yeah, it's very difficult to read, but yeah, for me, I felt like I needed to read it. So yeah, gonna move on to the next book now, because my like throat is starting to hurt from like talking. So yeah, then next is the book Hunger. Now I've always wanted to read this book, and I found it in the library, and yeah, I read it. I'm very glad that I read it. I gave it 5 stars. I really liked reading it. I really like the author's like writing style and how they described everything, and I definitely want to buy like a physical copy of this book so I can annotate it. And I really want to talk about this book more, but like I said, my throat is starting to hurt from like talking so much, because I don't usually talk a lot during the week, and I'm not used to talking so long to a camera anymore, because I haven't filmed in like 2-3 weeks. So because of that, I'm still like a bit rusty, and my voice is a bit rusty. So yeah, wish I could talk about this for longer, but I will buy like a physical copy and reread it. So when I do reread it, I'll talk about it a lot more. So yeah, let's move on to the next book. Then next is White Fragility. Now this is a book that I've always wanted to read, but I couldn't find it anywhere. And when I did finally found it in a bookstore, I couldn't read it because I couldn't annotate it, because my orange like highlighter was out of ink, and I didn't want to read it without being able to like annotate it. So I waited a while until I could find like a new orange marker. So yeah, finally read it. Highly recommend it. Very informative. Glad I read it. Very short as well, so it's very fast to get through, but it really makes you think about stuff. So yeah, highly recommend it. So yeah. Then next I read Avcad Men. This is a book that I got from a library specifically for like a Storygraph like reading challenge that took place last year, where you had to read a book from like every single letter of the alphabet. In this book I read it in like a translated version, and in that translated version it had like a letter that I didn't have yet in that reading challenge, so I only read it because of that. I gave it 2.5 stars. I thought it was more interesting than I was expecting, but it still wasn't that interesting. So yeah, I gave it like 2.5 stars. More interesting than I thought it was gonna be, but not too interesting. Not really like my type of book, but I thought it was more interesting than I was expecting. So yeah, glad I read it, and glad it helped me with that reading challenge, I guess. So yeah. Then next I read the collective poems of Oscar Wilde. I really hope I pronounced that properly, because I feel like because I'm so like in pain from like both my throat and like from just my body in general, I feel like I can't really understand what I'm saying anymore. So yeah, I read this at the very end of the year. I thought this was going to be like my last book of the year, and it was not, because for some reason I ended up reading like 3 more books after it, because this book was my 150th book of the year. My goal was 150, so I was like, now I can stop reading. And needless to say, I didn't. I read like 153 books last year, so that's good, I guess. But yeah, I really like this. I really like Oscar Wilde's writing. I think it's very beautiful, and I think this book itself is also very beautiful. The cover's very pretty, so yeah, glad I read this. Sad kind of that it wasn't like my last book of the year, but oh well. So yeah, glad I read it. Highly recommend it. People know already who Oscar Wilde is. If you don't know who he is, The Picture of Dorian Gray, that author. So yeah, highly recommend it. We'll read more of his books hopefully sometime soon. So yeah. Then next I read this book. This is another book from the library, as you can tell by the title. And yeah, I thought this book was very interesting. The topic was very interesting, but I only gave it like 3 stars because I feel like it didn't really go into depth about the topic, which is normal because this book was only like 150 pages, I think, or maybe less than that. So going really into depth about this type of topic is kind of impossible, which I'm pretty sure like the topic, if I remember correctly, is like families and how you as like typically like a woman are kind of like expected to have one by a certain age, and how people look down on you when you don't, and how people expect you to be lonely and stuff like that. And it's a very interesting subject, but sadly enough this book was just too short to really go into depth about it, but it was like a good starting point about the subject. So I hope I can find more books like this with this topic that are just a bit longer and delve into this topic like a little bit more. So yeah, I liked reading it, but like I said, I'm gonna read more books about the subject to kind of like, you know, read about it a bit more. So yeah. Then lastly, we have The Loneliest Girl in the Universe. Now this book, I thought this was going to be like the book that I read at the very end of December, and I would take it over into January. So like it added to like my January wrap up and stuff like that. But for some reason, I read this book like in almost like one sitting. I would have made it one sitting if my back didn't start hurting. But yeah, I read this very fast. It was so like captivating. I just like couldn't put it down. Which is very interesting because I got this at like a secondhand like book sale thing that someone was holding. So this book isn't exactly like in the best condition. It's like very yellow, almost orange. And yeah, I thought I wasn't gonna like this a lot, but I ended up like really liking it for some reason. I gave it like 4.75 stars, almost 5 stars, which is like ridiculous because like I said, I wasn't expecting to like it. I was expecting to like slowly make my way through this book towards like the end of December, in January, and then I just couldn't put it down. And it was making me like really like paranoid, like reading it. I was like, oh my god, like is this like a book for teenagers? Like, well, what is going on? I was literally like genuinely scared because mainly I was reading this like at night for some reason, because I was watching like the darts tournament that happens like in December and in January, and so it's like late at night, and I kept like reading this even though the darts tournament for the night was already over. I kept like reading this until like 2 a.m. in the morning, and I genuinely had to like put it down because I was like, okay, I'm getting like too nervous. Like I need to put it down because otherwise I'm gonna spend like the entire night like having nightmares. Like it's that bad. Which again, this is a book for teenagers, I'm pretty sure. So I thought it was gonna be like a little bit childish, which it kind of is. But then it kind of like goes into this category of like it's not childish anymore, it's like genuinely terrifying. Like it's really strange, and yeah, it took me like very off guard. And like I said, I was planning on making this like my first book of the year in January. It ended up being the last book that I read in December, because after I read this there were still like 2 days left in December, and I was like, yeah, no, like I'm not reading anymore. Like this is it for the year, this is it, I'm done. I don't need more. Like this was enough of an experience. I don't need to do that again. So yeah, it was definitely like an experience to read. I think I recommend it. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just gonna say when you start reading it, like be prepared for a book that is just a little bit more like intense than what you're expecting. Because I was really expecting a very like, you know, kind of like melancholy, slow-paced book. Instead, what I got was almost like thriller horror stuff, which is again genuinely crazy because I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, recommend it, but just be careful, I guess. So yeah, gonna stop talking now because I feel like I've talked about this book for long enough. And like I said, my throat hurts and I feel like you can hear it now as well. So yeah, gonna end this video now. Glad I managed to film it today. Glad I managed to film like 2 videos today. So yeah, gonna put this down now and do the outro. So that was my December wrap up. I almost said January wrap up, but we're not that quite far yet. But yeah, that was my December wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it was probably a bit of a chaotic video. I also am sorry that my cat isn't in this video at all. He's very sleepy today, and he's just like sleeping this entire time. He has been sleeping like on my bed, like right in front of me. So yeah, he's not in this video at all. I'm also not gonna wake him up to take like a thumbnail. Like I just want to leave him alone. So yeah, I hope you guys like enjoy this video. Again, I know this video is probably gonna be posted very late, probably towards like the end of January. I really apologize for that, but like I said, I can't film videos like this very often. So yeah, I hope you guys liked it regardless. Thank you for watching, I guess. Tell me down below what books you guys read in December and what like the book was that like jumped out to you the most, which for me is probably the last book, like The Loneliest Girl in the Universe. I wasn't expecting it to be that, but it was. So yeah, thank you for watching and bye.